Hi, hello, and welcome to the library. It is indeed Moomin today. I hope that you are doing very, very well. And I am a bit tired. I think I had a lot of things to do in this, I'd say last week before a break. And there's a last burst of activity that I need to get through, and after that I can rest genuinely for at least a little bit of time. But yeah, I hope that you're doing okay, that you do not feel as tired as I am. Today we will do a short stream, just because I need I need a nap basically after stream. So I don't want to stream for 3 hours. It shouldn't be the case anyway. I don't think we'll be able to yap for 3 hours on Moomin. But at the same time, who knows? We are, we're known for yapping too much, I guess. If you remember the previous leaf of their books, we kind of did the lecture and then we did a transition towards something else. This won't be the case today. We will just do the lecture and some light yapping, before and after. And that's basically it. This is the last lecture of the 1.0 cycle. The 2.0 will come in September. I have talked to my artist a bit more, and the process is starting as the first payment has been made. So I'll be, I'm very, very eager and happy to work with them, and it will be very fun. So we'll stream in August. I don't think we'll do full weeks. I'll probably go for a lighter schedule, just because I want to focus on a lot more things. And as much as streaming 3 times per week is funny, it locks me out of a lot of things that I could do to be productive in terms of research and so on. So August will be pretty calm in terms of what we want to stream. There won't be a new lecture because I already have things to prepare for September. But yeah, that's basically it. Do I have things to say before we start? Not really. I was walking a bit outside, and it's always very funny walking during the summer outside. You have like a lot of people, obviously, but you have also a lot of places that are closed for vacation. And I live like in a place where you always see a lot of, economic activity. Like the stores are normally always open. It's quite like dynamic. And then summer, it's just like a different kind of like dynamism. And I mean, especially when the shops, the stores are managed by local people, independent people, it's very nice to see them like take a break. Obviously, it made our life a bit like harder when we were searching for like a restaurant, because literally everybody right now is on vacation, and all like the good restaurants that I usually enjoy here are closed. So it was pretty funny trying to find like something new. But yeah, that's basically it. Like, I don't have much to say because I was just taking like a walk outside. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like, especially during the heat wave, like, of course it was summer, but it was like hellish summer. And this is not the period where you really rest, which is very, very different from like right now. I think the temperatures are bearable. We're like oscillating, I don't know, around like, let's say 30 degrees. It can go as low as like 27. It can go to 32. But I think it's like, compared to what we had before, it's like a mild summer. And I can really feel, the atmosphere of summer right now. It's not something that I enjoy because I'm always more of a fall/winter person. But it's nice. It's nice to, be able to live and be able to go outside to some extent. I do enjoy also spring. I do enjoy spring. The problem with spring is that you have so much pollen and stuff. It's not that I have any allergy. It's mostly that you have things flying everywhere. It's like a bit annoying. And I think like our mid-season, like between summer and winter, this period, or like those periods, since it's like spring and fall, they have been very chaotic lately in the past years. But I think I would say like that spring is even more chaotic than fall. It's like you really don't know how to dress. You don't know if it's raining, if it's sunny outside. The wind situation is unclear, and I think that like the season, like spring as a season, is getting like shorter and shorter every year because we're entering like summer very, very early. Obviously, this year was kind of like I don't know, an outlier since we started immediately with a heat wave. But yeah, very, very interesting, like how certain like emotions and memories I have like of seasonal changes, they just don't hold true anymore because things are completely shifted by climate change and so on. So yeah, that's my yapping before we start into like the real yapping. So let me make sure that everything is kind of ready. And we'll transition immediately into it, I think. Okay, so I believe that you should be able to see everything. I hope that like the text is not small, or at least not, big enough so that you can read it. I think it's the case, but at the same time, I've not done like, I've not checked, entirely the entire PowerPoint, so we just don't know. So today, as it has been hinted, we will be talking about Moomin in Japan. This has been prompted a few months ago by Sigrid. I don't even remember like why. I think you shared something like in the Discord server about like Moomin, and I said like, oh yeah, you know, like I could get interested into Moomin if we do like a sort of Live of Their Books episode and you tie that to Japan. And so the idea of like a Moomin in Japan episode like arose at that time, and we are finally doing it. So this is kind of like the result of a lot of research, to be honest. My influence is growing. I mean, in the meantime, you also got like your moderator tag role. But yeah, so the point is to talk like both about Moomin and Japan. We could do like an entire episode on Moomin in itself. Like it's such a big thing, obviously, and it has been like analyzed a lot in literature studies and cultural studies in general. And I think it's very, very interesting, like how much you can talk about this series, what it means like in European culture and stuff. And that would be interesting, you know, taking like very specific episodes of the anime or taking like some of the books and trying to like analyze them like kind of like scene by scene. This is not what we are doing today, because it would be too long, and I was busy, so I did like peruse a little bit of like Moomin material, but I, for example, did not have the time to read the entirety of Moomin, right? Like it's not that big. I think, yeah, it's only like 8 books, plus like all the kind of like side stories that you have in other books. But I did not read them entirely. I mean, I read like a few sections to like check some informations, but that's basically it. So instead, what we're doing is like try to examine the influence of Moomin. We will be trying to understand why is Moomin so popular in Japan, but also like in other places of the world, because I don't think, I mean, there's like a very deep connection between Japanese people and Moomin, but the reasons behind it, I think, are you can like adapt them to like other countries, and it explains why Moomin is like so important today. So yeah, this is really a cultural anthropology lecture more than anything else. There's a lot of things we won't be talking about, and I'm sorry for that if it was what you were waiting for. Okay, so before we start talking about Moomin per se, I think it's like important to talk a little bit about Tove Jansson, the creator of Moomin. This is important because like she obviously had a very big impact on what Moomin became in terms of a cultural icon, in terms of like business decisions, which is kind of like the key point of what we'll explore today. Is like, why is Moomin so popular? Why do we have like so many Moomin goodies? And is that like in line with what Jansson was trying to convey with Moomin? Especially because people that may be familiar with Moomin and Jansson know that she has very, let's say, anti-consumerist position towards like, you know, modern society. And there's a sort of paradox that we need to solve, right? Like, again, if Moomin is kind of like anti-materialist, why do we have like so many Moomin goodies nowadays that are like, those are like official goodies? And to understand that, we need to look at Tove Jansson's life. So she was born in the eve of the First World War in 1914. So she was born in Helsinki in Finland, and her early life is like interesting, but like we don't really have the time to talk about it. What I will say is that she was the daughter of an artist, of a sculptor that was like kind of like, you know, this old school artist, very like proud of his work and with like a definitive vision. Her father was like, oh yeah, you will become an artist, you will be famous. And to be fair, she was very, very early in her life, she was interested in drawing. And we know that she published her first illustrations at age 14. So it begs the question, what were you doing back then? What were you doing when you were 14? Were you already like publishing comic strips in newspapers? Probably not. And all of that to say that Jansson was talented very early. She was drawing a lot, and then she was also trying to explore writing. And this is kind of like the thing when we talk about Jansson, is that she's both a drawer and a writer. And like for her, those two aspects will intersect, and you cannot like take one apart from her work. So she was like pretty successful very early. She joined the Stockholm Technical School to be able to finish her secondary studies, and after that she came back to Finland, and she started working and studying at the Atheneum, which is one of the three museums that are composing the National Gallery in Finland. And that was in 33, and 1 year after, in 34, she started a European travel, going basically everywhere. She went in Berlin, she went in Italy, she went in many Central Europe locations, to be honest, and she finished her trip in Paris. This Parisian leg of her travel, and she stayed there for quite a while, to be honest, was very important for her because there was already like a Finnish community in Paris, but she felt like it was not for her. She decided to go like on a travel to escape basically her culture and to try to mingle with other people. And when you check like her correspondences and everything that she wrote at that time, she was explaining that she did not trade a cage for another one. She didn't like spending time in the hotel where all like the Finnish people were staying, the Finnish artists. And so she was really a free spirit, and that is very important to understand like Tove Jansson personality. She is seeking space, she is seeking freedom, she is seeking solitude to some extent. And that is something that we will find in Moomin and basically in all of what she's doing in her life. So after her European travel, she would come back like to Finland and start basically like working as a cartoonist for newspapers. In the 40s, she is basically considered the leading cartoonist in Finland at that time. And she would especially draw in Garm, which is like an important newspaper, kind of like, let's say, you know, like for Nordic countries, I think it's interesting to say that it's right-leaning. It was a right-leaning newspapers, and she was drawing there, like, you know, political things, artistic things, whatever. And obviously, there was the perils from Nazi Germany. And of course, Finland was in a somewhat uncomfortable situation compared to that. And Tove Jansson basically took action by really depicting Hitler and showing how miserable he was. And one of the things that would always be featured in her cartoon strips would be, her comic strips would be Moomin. Well, back then it was just, a head that she would use as her signature, but that's where like Moomin really appeared in like for the general public and became kind of famous as a sort of like anti-fascist, let's say, character. And because of the success of Moomin, Jansson was prompted to write and illustrate the first Moomin book called The Moomins and the Great Flood, the first in a series of 8 books. Again, we won't talk too much about that, but it's just important to know that it was like a very big success at that time, because there was this feel of, as you can guess from the title, it was escaping natural catastrophe. I don't know what I'm talking about. And she would like write several books back to back to a point where some people in England would come to her and be like, okay, maybe you should, draw some like Moomin strips for us in the evening news, so an English newspaper. And we don't really need to go too deep into it, but like in 54, she decided to accept. And she started drawing for like 6 years, basically. Trying to do also her own things at the same time. She was still drawing things that were non-Moomin content. She had like several expositions and stuff. And it was like a happy time for her, very productive time. 2 important like events also. I don't know why like the chronology is not like in the right order, but like she met Tuliki Pietila, who would become her partner for life. So Tove Jansson was in a gay relationship. And Pietila was also a very prominent artist in Finland. So really an artistic powerhouse couple. In 57, she would publish Moomingland Midwinter, which is kind of, I think it's the 5th, if I'm correct. It's the 5th book that is kind of like marking a transition towards like a more wistful Mooming era. All the books becomes like a bit more serious and a bit more somber in tone. And it may, it may be related to why she decided to kind of stop drawing Moomin at some point. Because you can see that in the 60s, it's Lars Jansson, so her brother, that would take over in the evening news to draw the strips. And I say that because, as we said before, like Tove Jansson seeks freedom. And at that point, she was like, I can't draw every week on the evening news, or, every days in the evening news. And her brother would always come back to be like, it's okay, you do your things, you take some time, you do your other projects, and I'll take care of everything. And we need to remember Lars Jansson as like a very important figure that was always behind his sister, always trying to keep the business alive when she was bored or she wanted to do other things. So at the time, she did like some solo painting exhibition. She did the world travel at some point, especially because, she went to Japan, especially because Japan was very receptive to Moomin. She wrote a book, the summer book, that is very, very famous. She collaborated to some extent in the new Moomin anime. And in 2001, she died in Helsinki. What is important to say, and it's not like in the biography here, but like in the mid the mid-50s, Jansson would found the Moomin character company. So very early, in the life of Moomin, there was a company that would manage the economic aspect of the series, the license. And this is very important to remember, because for Tove Jansson, being able to have some economical independence, it was a way to have a revenge on the patriarchal society of that time. And so that's how we need to analyze the capitalistic, let's say, the capitalistic potential of Moomin. Because yes, it is capitalistic, which is to some extent contrasting with what you see in the books. But for Jansson, it was a liberating move vis-à-vis the Finnish society and the weight put on women at that time. Having her company was... It would mean that she had succeeded in life and in her artistic career to some extent. She would be known for her work, but her works are also making money, and that was very important. So okay, that's basically a few informations on Jansson that we need to keep in mind while discussing the rest. So what I want to do right now is kind of there's a section that we can read here very quickly, because she was a bit crazy Jansson. She was I really want a house on an island, and she was seeking an island to build a house for several years, and she was in discussion with local fisheries authorities and stuff to have an island for herself. And the island she would select, she would go there and start to build the house by herself. And there is this very interesting letter that she would send to a friend. And we'll just read the bottom part. But she would write endless peace and a certain desolation, especially in the evenings. So she is staying on the island. It's been stormy nearly all the time, and out on the point the house has been thoroughly ventilated. Breakers all round, and the weirdest illusory sensation of voices, steps, and music in the wind. In particular, the acoustic phenomenon of rhythmic violin music when I want to sleep has been a bit disturbing. You become different and think new thoughts when you live a long time alone with the sea and yourself. So you can see that in this description, she is really describing the emotions that came onto her by experiencing the sounds and the landscape of nature, of natural phenomena. And this is obviously something, if you know Moomin, that you will find in the books, in the anime, and so on. And I believe it is especially it is a very close description of what Snufkin is to some extent. Snufkin is really this, philosophical bard, traveler, trying to make his life simple and to commune with the environment. Really a free spirit, and that is really, really, really inspired by Jansson's way of looking at nature. And on the right, you can see a painting that she made, an illustration for the summer book, which is a book about a family that is spending time on an island in Finland. So very, very fitting. Moomin stream, yes, we are doing that. Based Jansson, she is a very interesting character, person. And we'll talk a little bit about that at the very end. That sounds amazing to live like that, not gonna lie. You should, like, if you're interested, you should take at like Jansson and Pietila pictures when they're all on their island. And it's very, very interesting. I don't have any of them, I think, in this PowerPoint, but it's very, very telling about like the relationship they would have with like the environment. And by the way, like the two of them would like travel the world together. And if you check like the pictures they were taking, mostly that Pietila was taking, because she had like the camera, you can see like this closeness to the environment. And this is like obviously a running theme in all of like Moomin media. And we'll talk about that later. But very interesting to keep this idea of like solitude in mind. There is, as you can see at the end, you become different and think new thoughts when you live a long time alone with the sea and yourself. There is a sort of betterment, of refinement of like the character, about like personhood through solitude. And that is something that we'll find in this entire like lecture. Okay, so now that we have put like all those like, you know, foundational bricks, let's talk a little bit about the business of Moomin. So what I try to do here is kind of a very, very simple organigram or just structure of how Moomin characters, so the main company behind Moomin, is handling all the licenses and stuff. And we'll see how it explains like a lot of decisions, you know, further in the lecture. So Moomin character has been founded in mid-50s and is the IP owner of Moomin. So they have a right on every Moomin material that is being released. But they are not doing like the work by themselves. They have, as you can see, they have delegated the licensing procedure to a Finnish company called Rights and Brands, who is basically their agent. Rights and Brands is basically managing the Moomin licensing rights worldwide. They are subcontracting sometimes in certain countries. For example, you have Moomin Monogatari in Japan, but this is like very linked to like Rights and Brands. But for simplicity, let's say that Rights and Brands is taking care of everything. One important thing also is, as you can see at the bottom, is the Fiskars group. That is the owner of Arabia. Arabia is particularly well known if you are a Moomin fan and you own some Moomin goodies and paraphernalia, because this is the brand that is behind all the Moomin cups that are made in Finland. You have an example of such a cup in the left side of the slide. So you have like very accessible like cups that you can buy, but Arabia is also doing very specific time-limited editions, and maybe you have checked that if you're a Moomin fan, but some of the cups can be sold for like, you know, 200 euros, and they would sell immediately, and that's why like Arabia is like such a big, it's like the foundational, like a collaboration for Moomin. And this was chosen by Moomin characters because they were like, okay, I think our visions on like business and how to conduct business ethically and with this idea of like being always consumer first, I think we match and we can like, you know, work together. And why are we talking about that? Well, because the group that is owning Arabia, so Fiskars, is since like 2021 a minority shareholder in Rights and Brands. There has been a sort of like consolidation and like strategical partnership in the recent years, and we are seeing rights and brands really like working actively to promote like Finnish culture, always with this idea of like being consumer friendly, consumer first, or consumer mindful, and this kind of explains how like Moomin characters will choose or not to do like a collaboration. Not every collaboration is perfect, but you can see like a small list on the right side of like the slide. You have like Adidas, you have Skultuna, which is like a jewelry company that is based in Nordic countries. I think it's Finland, but I'm not exactly sure. It might be Sweden, I can't remember. You have License to Charm, so another jewelry brand. You have Yamaka Shoten, which is a ceramic brand in Japan, very similar to Arabia. Practical Publishing for like, just publishing. Toraya is a food producer, is a candy maker. Toei is a studio. Animating studio and like film studio. You have obviously book publishers, amusement parks, and so on. And all those licenses would be vetted by Moomin characters because it would need to fit like the brand and like the ideals that Moomin is embodying. And there has been like stories of like several licenses that have been revoked because there has been some controversies with like employees or like the CEO made some racist remarks, and Moomin was like, it's just not possible. So we are like literally cutting our license agreement immediately. And this is a very, very, vivid and dynamic ecosystem. Like you can see that we have more than like 800 licenses to this day, and it's basically growing every year because Moomin in the past, let's say 10 years, has become like a powerhouse in terms of IP, of international IP. It's like the 37th most profitable IP in the world, and I think, I don't really know the numbers, but I think we are like at $700 or $800 million of benefits, per year, actually, right now. So it's really like a big company, and this is about like balancing how we are building strategical partnerships and with what license we want, with what brand we want to collaborate. And there's this idea of like generosity, of not being like shy of doing licenses, but at the same time, those collaborations must be vetted and must fit in Moomin's ideals, be it like generosity, nature, consumer friendly, and so on. And we'll take a look at several examples afterwards. Okay, but now, first of all, before we begin to check like the actual collaborations, let's talk a little bit about how Moomin came in Japan. So if you remember, the Moomin books were basically mostly written in the 50s. Sounds a bit scary, just like Nintendo. I mean, that's kind of like the paradox, right? It's like, can we trust Moomin? It's kind of like the question we'll try to answer, at the very end. Can we trust Moomin? The books were released in Finland, and they would be translated very quickly. I mean, not very quickly, but quite quickly in Japan, with the first edition, you can see on the left, being released in 64. It's a bit of a crazy story because like it's a story of like a Japanese spy that came back to like Japan with some Moomin books, and like his wife would translate like the book in Japanese. So kind of a very crazy story for like the first edition. But that's when the public had its first taste of Moomin in Japan. And hello, Cyber. Reading books. We're talking about Moomin. And it was kind of like an immediate success, to be honest. People would like latch onto the books, translation would follow pretty quickly, and to a point where an anime adaptation was prepared and aired in '69. If you know a little bit about the Moomin anime adaptations, and especially the Japanese ones, you may know that like the '69 adaptation is kind of cooked. It's kind of a crazy adaptation for a certain reason that you will see immediately. Okay, let's talk first about this. Okay, so this is the '69 adaptation of Moomin. I think it's pretty, self-explanatory. If you think that Moomin is kind of a very, gentle Moomin troll that is just spending some nice time with his friends and stuff, yeah, the original adaptation is a bit crazy. You have like guns, you have a lot of violence to a certain extent. It's pretty intense in tone. It's not a relaxing adaptation to watch. And to be fair, it is kind of why Tove Jansson was like, I don't like this adaptation. People will tell you, like, the legend on the internet is that, like, Tove Jansson was not happy because of the depiction of violence and stuff, but actually we don't exactly know why Jansson was unhappy with this particular adaptation. Some people and the translator of Moomin from Finnish to Japanese is kind of advancing like another hypothesis, and the hypothesis is that Jansson was not happy that Moomin was used to talk about the state of Japanese society at that time. Because when you check like interviews of the people that worked on the early adaptation, they were like, but it makes sense. We have adapted Moomin, but we also have like a message on like modernity in Japan. With the very quick modernity, and there's a very specific and interesting like discourse here. So it was not like just like, oh, we wanted like some guns with Moomin. There was like a point behind, but for some reason Jansson was not really happy with that. We don't exactly know why, so let's not talk too much about it. And when you talk about like Japanese with Japanese people about Moomin, they will say that it's a very nostalgic figure for them. And to understand that, we need to talk a little bit about Japanese society. So let's come like a bit earlier. Obviously, you know what the Second World War is, and you know that like Japan has been completely destroyed by the American during the war. Bombings everywhere. Tokyo was basically like burned through fire bombings for several, years straight. Everything had to be rebuilt. And to like oversee the rebuilding of Japan, there was an American occupation government for a few years that would take care of like the first, big policies. And that would also like give an impulse of Americanness to Japanese society. The reconstruction of Japan was pretty successful. There was in the 50s, that was really like a reconstruction time. Like a lot of things were just like in ruins. So this was pure reconstruction. But starting from the 60s, Japan was already back to like pre-war economical levels, and was ready to, start a very sharp increase of profitability, productivity, and have a very strong economy. And there is, in 60, there is what we call the income doubling plan. And the plan was basically to double the GDP of Japan in 10 years. And they did that in 5 years, basically. Japan really became, in the 60s, really became like the powerhouse of the world. This is just like the biggest economical country of the world at that time. And kind of like to celebrate this amazing growth that came obviously with a lot of inequalities and stuff, but this is not the topic of today. To celebrate this growth, Japan would hold the Olympic Games in 1964. And you can see a poster for those Olympic Games in the middle of the slide. And obviously, you want people to enjoy the Olympic Games. And to do that, you need some television. And Japan kind of pushed towards television ownership in Japan. I mean, in the entire country. And if you can see it, I've noted the rate of penetration for television in Japan. In the early 60s, we were only like 33% of the households would have a television. And 5 years after, so meaning just after the Olympic Games, 85% of households countrywide, and it means like a lot of, rural areas would have the television. And what it means is that television became kind of like a new pastime for the Japanese family. You would put television for like the big, shows that would be aired during the evening. We could do like an entire episode on like the history of Japanese television, but it was really like an era of big projects for Japan. And obviously, Moomin being aired in 69, 70 would become kind of like those very iconic anime that you could watch on TV with your entire family, because you just leave the TV running, during like prime time or whatever. And for this exact reason, because the rate of penetration was so big, that's why so many people from that time will associate pastness and nostalgia to Moomin. Moomin, even with like the crazy thing in here, the crazy scenes in here, would be like a symbol of like, oh yeah, that's when Japan was nice. And what do I mean by, oh, that's when Japan was nice? We have talked about that a lot on stream as well. We'll start to associate Moomin with guns. It's a bit more complicated, obviously, but yes. So we have talked about that a lot in the stream, but like we can like kind of like divide the Japanese, contemporary history in several slices. We can almost do them by like decades. So we say that the 50s was really the time for reconstruction. The 60s were a time for economical growth. The 70s, it's kind of like the golden age of Japan, in the sense that like people were enjoying the benefits of like economic growth, but would still retain their sense of solidarity and community. And we kind of talked about that when we did like the fishing episode on A Leaf of Their Books. I presented, if you can remember, Attack on the Friday Monsters, which is a game that is set in the 70s. And this game, and you can see with that particular frame, it's really about, oh yeah, there is modernity. We have like TV studios, we have trains, we have cars, but we still retain this sense of closeness between neighbors. People are helping each other, and it's a very nice time to live in. Obviously, this particular view is obfuscating the fact that like the 70s were a very heated period, especially politically, with a lot of strikes and stuff. But that's the idea that people have in mind. It really doesn't matter what really happened. What matters for our discussion is that people will be remembering the nice aspect of the 70s. This is like the really golden age of Japan, of Japanese society. And then we have like the 80s, where we have the bubble economy, impressive economical growth, and people would just like consume a lot. It's like, yeah, literally you can like buy luxury items because the yen is so strong that like buying, you know, like a luxury bag or a car, this is like very normal. People would not have a sense of what money is anymore, and everything was possible. And some people would say that, yeah, it was fun, but it was also the downfall of Japanese society. And then you have like the 90s onwards with the collapse of the bubble and all of the economic, issues that came afterwards, what we call the lost decades. We talked about that a lot on stream. Okay, so for Japanese people, when you think about Moomin, you think about that, about what you see on screen, about the golden age of Japan, about the 70s, about when people were nice, when we were all together. And this is like obviously hinted by, this was also like fostered by the content of like, you know, the Moomin books and the anime themselves. It's really about like people trying to live together and try to be close together. Miyabi mentions the lost decades is actually on the Beacon card. I will talk about the lost decades like forever. This is basically my my research topic. Okay, so now that you have this idea, I just want to take a look at this very specific example. It's an exhibition that was held last year at the Tokyo Metropolitan Art Museum called Nostalgia, basically. Scenes from memory. And you would like several artists that would like come here and show their paintings or whatever that are all related to nostalgia. And you can see in this particular painting, this color on paper by Shiba Yasuhiro, you can see this idea of, oh yeah, I'm with my brother, we're in the countryside, and we're just having some fun. We are either fishing or like catching bugs, butterflies and stuff. And there's this very burnt, golden hue to the entire painting. Really like this idea that the 70s were just a better time, and this is kind of lost. We have lost that in modern Japan. And this idea of nostalgia is very strong nowadays. It's kind of what we call the Showa era nostalgia, or Showa retro. This idea that before the 80s, that was like the real, you know, Japan. That's the aesthetics that are speaking to us. And here it's a very like nature-focused painting, but you have also this nostalgia for urban Japan from that time that was also considered better than Japan nowadays. So nostalgia is a very powerful thing in current Japanese society, because we live like in, you know, the ripples of the lost decades, the Shinzo Abe years, and I think like we are in the post Shinzo Abe years, but it's still like very hard to live in Japan with inflation and stuff like this, job market being still locked down, and thinking about the past, thinking about like when things were right. It's very like something that Japanese society and Japanese media will foster actively. We have this in our Western countries, right? The pre-oil shock society. It's the case in France. I think it's the case in most of like Western Europe. But the time before all the economic crisis, this is like when people had it easy, and this is probably the best time to be alive, you know, in France. But yeah. And then there's a shift from like with the new adaptation. So the new adaptation is very important because it came basically at the beginning of the lost decades. And this was overseen by the Moomin Characters Company very closely. Because Jansson did not like the previous one, the second one would be very closely made by Telecable, so the Finnish like studio, and the Japanese artist. And this is very close to like what Moomin is in the books, to be honest. I won't talk too much about like the anime because we couldn't be here for like hours, but I think one interesting thing would be just to talk a little bit about episode 27, which is Okanemochi no Jan Oba-san, so the rich Auntie Jane. And in this episode, if you remember, if you know the anime, if you know your Moomin lore, you know that like Auntie Jane is very rich and she's like coming to the Moomin Valley being like, oh yeah, I need someone like to, take care of me, take care of my money. And also like I have an entire inheritance for Moomin Papa. And she will encounter like characters that are like, yeah, but like money, we just don't care. Moomin Papa is like, I don't need your money. I will take care of you like without any money. Like you don't need to give me anything. And people know that like if they start to accept money, then things will go wrong at some point. And in the early minutes of the episode, you have like this frame on the left where Auntie Jane sees Smurfkin, who is just like fishing and being like, yeah, I don't know, I cannot answer your question because I'm just here like fishing, so I cannot help you. I don't care, like if you want to pay me, I cannot help you. You are distracting me in my, relaxation moment. And you have always the anime framing like Auntie Jane like this. She's always contrasted with the rest of the frame. Average Snufkin moment, of course. And it's very funny to see how like everybody kind of like refuses Auntie Jane's inheritance. And Japanese people would really, really be happy with that episode, especially because Moomin Papa doesn't take the money and Moomin Mama is also in agreement with Moomin Papa. And this is very interesting because in traditional Japanese society, if the husband is like bringing the money home, the one supervising and the one managing like the financial matters is the wife. And in here, there is this idea of like a collaboration on like financial matters between like the husband and the wife. And that was really astonishing for like for Japanese people, because they were like, this is just very good, right? Like it's not the one person is obeying the other. It's like, oh no, we are making decisions together as a team, as like a couple, and we're reaching like an agreement without any force required. And this idea of managing things together, of refusing money, seeing like that happiness can be found in other ways, it would like speak a lot to Japanese people, especially at a time where things were starting to become, a bit weird. And when like the anime was like aired again and again, you're already like in the deep of the crisis with a lot of dysfunctions of dysfunctional like crisis in the households, and Moomin was kind of seen as like an ideal to strive for. Some would say that it is the bare minimum. It is obviously the bare minimum, but again, we need to keep in mind that like Japanese society was not at that point, like in terms of like social advances and just like structure, this was not the case at all. And seeing like Moomin on TV would really like push them to strive for something a bit better. So that's the relationship between like Moomin, Japan, and capitalism. And then there's the same thing with Moomin, Japan, and nature. You may know Moomin and the Moomin Valley and I think in English it's like Comet in Moomin Valley, right? So there was like an adaptation, a film adaptation of this book in 92, so 2 years after the anime adaptation. And the story of like Comet in Moomin Land, Moomin Dani no Suise. The story is that a comet is basically crashing on Earth and everybody will die surely. And it's like, how are we coping with the end of the world? And basically the twist is that no, the comet is just passing near the Earth, but the comet is not crashing. And when like the eve of the crashing, all the characters are like hiding in like caves and some stuff, they would just go to sleep, and like the next morning they would see that everything is fine and that like the ocean is coming back again after being like kind of like, you know, the water would evaporate because of the closeness of the comet. But like nature is starting again, and you have this frame at the very end of the movie where everybody is kind of like enjoying the sea again. They are very happy to be surrounded by nature and to find nature again. And this is a very important theme in Moomin. You always have like catastrophe of some sorts. You have flood, you have blizzard, you have comet waiting to crash on Earth. You have like so many like things making the environment very hostile, but it's always about finding joy amidst those catastrophes, finding some safety and then finding some joy with the environment. And obviously, you understand that it's really the case about Japan also, right? Japan is a country that is experiencing many floods, typhoons, you have tsunami, earthquake. So living in Japan, this is not like, if you don't like natural catastrophe, maybe you should not move to Japan. And having Moomin kind of like dealing with the same issues and finding joy in them, that is also very appealing to Japanese people, a sort of like a new way to relate to nature. And in all of those examples, Moomin is basically like an ideal to strive for, an example people should follow. And there is like a reason why you have many Japanese accounts on twitter.com, no X, that are just like either ARPing as like Smurfkin or posting like quotations from the books and the anime. Because they would like relate with like this content so much. There has been like a survey in 2014 in Japan to know what was the most popular character of the show, of the series. And in third position, you had like Moomin. But in first and second position, you had Little Mai and Snufkin. And this idea is that, oh yeah, we have like a character, like sort of like chaotic little girl that doesn't care too much about like social norms, very like gremlin, but also a very close friend, very respectful to like her friends in her way. Of course, this would be like popular in Japan because Japan is a country with such rigid social norms that it feels nice to have like an example of you can be yourself, you can be chaotic and it's fine, and people will still love you, and it still means that you love people. And obviously Snufkin is very popular because it speaks to the Japanese male office worker that just want to, have some fun. Like, work is not fun. We shouldn't work. We should just like spend time exploring our passions, enjoying freedom, and traveling to see the world. She is so like you for real. But those two characters are especially beloved in Japan, and we'll talk a little bit about like some examples of people being inspired by those characters. Okay, and all of that is kind of culminating into like the licensing situation in Japan. If I cannot stress how big Japan is as a market for Moomin. At its peak, it was like literally 50% of the benefits of the Moomin characters company. Right now, it's closer because like Moomin is popular everywhere. It's only 30% of the benefits nowadays. But it's still obviously a very, very big market for Moomin, and we'll take a look at several examples. So again, the idea is always in collaborations to find things that matches in terms of ideals, in terms of values and ethics. And one example very recently, and when I say very recently, it's like literally this week, there is a collaboration between Moomin and OG Holdings, which is a paper and a packaging company. And basically they're doing like a collaboration for cups, for paper cups, with this idea of recycling everything. And you can, if you visit the OG Holdings headquarters, you will find the thing we can see on the left. You enter like literally in the building, and there's Moomin waiting for you with his very forest inspired decoration. And this is like a collaboration that happened because OG Holdings is very deeply involved in forest projects as well. They kind of want to foster healthy forests throughout Japan, and there are many things we could say about that, but obviously it fits with the idea of like Moomin being like nature friendly and respecting nature as a place of contemplation. So that's why you have this particular collaboration between them. Another example that is like kind of surprising is the Nippon Ham collaboration for their Scent of the Forest program. So this might be a bit like weird, especially when you see like a Moomin plushie with like a sausage on the right, but it is basically explained by the fact that Nippon Ham has done a collaboration, not a collaboration, but has done a program since like the early 2000s called Mori no Kaori, so the scent of the forest, whose objective was basically to waste less packagings in general. So you would have like very minimalist packaging with a lot of recycled materials, and this is like an ongoing program for like the past 25 years. And in 2010, you had a collaboration between Nippon Ham, again, just a manufacturer of like meat and sausages, and Moomin, with like the Moomin characters being on the packaging of sausage packs. And you could win like several things. You could buy some like associated goodies that were Moomin coded. So here you have like a plushie with a sausage, but you also had like an apron with the Moomin characters. It's a beautiful, like, I don't think I've put it like on those slides, but it's a beautiful like green apron with like the Moomin characters like running around. Very interesting. And so again, you see a sort of like kind of unexpected collaboration. It's like, why would Moomin collaborate with like a meat manufacturer? And the reason is but it's part like of a PR program that is environmentally friendly. So it makes sense for Moomin to use its IP to promote those ideas. And we need again to go to like Tove Jansson's philosophy. She was very not protective of her IP. She was protective of what you would do with her IP, but she wouldn't mind people like drawing Moomin in her stead. She wouldn't mind people experimenting with her characters. And as long as it would fit her worldview, she would accept basically everything. And it's a very generous approach in terms of marketing and in terms of like, building a company. It's still, we are still within capitalism, but it's like, even within capitalism, surely we can promote some good ideas about nature and stuff, and solidarity. And you can see this particular trend and this collaboration. There has been another collaboration that is still ongoing, although it was mostly during the 90s, with Teijin Textiles. Teijin Textiles is basically a company about textiles. It's about like sheets, about clothes, and whatever. And you had like TV ads with Moomin in them. And you wouldn't see much of like the actual products. Like if you can check like the actual ads on YouTube if you want, they're available there. But most of what you will see is Moomin, and it's just like a few frames with like the products that they are trying to sell. And the motto of Teijin is humans who make humans happy. This idea of solidarity, that we are only happy when we are with other people and when we are working together. And so you have like a lot of idea of being gentle, a very gentle, clothes, sheets and stuff. You have like at some point an ad for some fire-resistant clothes, and they would use like they would make a reference to like the comet in Moomin thingy, being like, oh yeah, if the comet is crashing, then you have like some clothes that are fire resistant, so surely you will live. And just having like Moomin as a character here, you will have like a boost of credibility when it comes to gentleness. And I think this is like another very unexpected collaboration, but that still makes sense for Moomin and for the Moomin Characters Company. And there is this very, very interesting chapter by Hideko Matsui, uses of Finland. There's a little typo. The use of Finland in Japan social imaginary, and I want to read it together because I think it's kind of like helping us resolve this tension between Moomin capitalism and anti-capitalism. So I'll read. Within the frame of corporate advertisement that feature Moomin, commodities that he endorses acquire an aura of nature friendliness, that's what we just said, and an idea of ethical engagement with the world, which in turn is associated with the author Tove Jansson's ethical commitments. An association between Moomin ethics and Tove Jansson is a subtle and unstable one by virtue of its formation. Again, what we say, the tension between the two. But by choosing products that have the aura of ethical engagement, those who shop for the commodities endorsed by Moomin can feel somewhat better about their own participation in a consumer society. Moomin's strength lies in its ability to evoke an ambience of ethical lifestyle, gently indexing the good old values and lifestyles that have been lost or effaced in the course of the economic development and modernization. Again, what we said, it's about a nostalgia for the 70s, and it's like right now we are living in a capitalistic world. It's like, what do you really want to do? You need, to live, you need to do things, and having Moomin kind of like soothe your anxieties about capitalism, about your current life. Yeah, even if you're still participating in the system, at least you're choosing like, something that has been vetted by Moomin, so something that probably is not that bad, right? Like if you eat the Nippon ham sausages or whatever, at least you know that this packaging is being recycled, and this is good for the forest or whatever. So an idea of ethical engagement. And by wrapping himself in an ambience that is underwritten by a vague desire and preference for pre-capitalist, nature-friendly and ethical world, Moomin makes himself into a commodity that can be purchased with some sense of redemption. And importantly, while asking the consumers to keep participating in capitalism as consumers and workers. And that's like when you need to decide for yourself. Like it's not my place like to tell, whether Moomin is bad or is good. If it's like, pure capitalism, like the idea of we are making you pay goodies for like a character and a universe where everybody says that we shouldn't work doesn't exist, and everybody is like spending, some free time doing fishing or whatever. There's something very ironic to some sense, but also this is giving some ideas for the future. And there's no right or wrong answer about like, is Moomin crazy or not? Is this like a very hypocrite moment from Moomin and from Moomin Company? I think it's also about what we make of Moomin, what you take from Moomin, and what you're able to output afterwards after being inspired by the characters. So what is very interesting here, I think it's this idea of a sense of redemption. People are still participating in the capitalistic system, but maybe it's not as bad as some other things, surely. So I want to talk a little bit about some other brand collaborations that are kind of fitting this idea. So just two of them. The first one on the left is Yamaka Shoten. It's a very long-standing collaboration, by the way, since 1908. And Yamaka Shoten is like ceramic producers or plenty in Japan, especially local ones. Yamaka Shoten is kind of like a big one. It was like founded, I think, in like, if I remember correctly, in 1913, something like that. And it was already, very like high production volumes and stuff. And Yamaka Shoten is doing a lot of collaboration with like some other brands. So it's doing collaborations with Moomin, but also with like with Crayon Shin-chan, with Shibi Maruko-chan. I think it's doing like some collaboration with Peanuts. So a lot of like cozy characters, cozy, family-friendly, very gentle characters, because it's evoking an air of nostalgia. And if you check like the catalog of Yamaka Shoten, it's a very, very soft palette. Like I think if your aesthetic is very pastel colors, very minimalist, but also flavorful, like a little bit bubbly like designs, those are very, very good like plates and tableware to have in your home. And because of that, they have fostered a very big collaboration with Moomin, still ongoing, and there's probably no sign of it stopping because this is the main manufacturer of Moomin cups and stuff and tableware in Japan. You have like, chopsticks, Moomin chopsticks, Moomin candle holder, literally everything that is made in ceramic can be Moomin coated. Okay, and in the right, you have a very, very recent collaboration in 2019 with like Toraya Confectionery. And this is part of a larger collaboration where the Moomin character company asked several very famous brands of like sweet makers to make Moomin coded sweets. So you have Pierre Hermé in France with macaron. You have I can't remember the name of the company, but you have like an Italian company that was requested to make some chocolate, some very high chocolate, and you have Toraya that was asked to make some sweets. And this is not your random company. Like Toraya is not your random company. It was a company that was founded in like medieval Japan, a family back then that started in like medieval Japan, and like their sweets were so good that they were forced to move from Kyoto to Tokyo by the emperor, because the emperor was like, yeah, you know, we are moving to like Tokyo, to Edo, but we still want to eat your sweets, so you have to come with us. You don't really have a choice here. And like Toraya is very, very close to the emperor family still. This is a very high quality brand. They're not doing a lot of things, but it's a very nice gift to get if you get something in Toraya. And they were chosen as like the Japanese representative for like sweets. And that's why you have like this very cute Moomin collaboration with Moomin and like a fir tree on the right. So very, very interesting collaboration also. And this idea here is probably like not nature related. It's probably like tradition. It's like Moomin is associating with traditional sweet makers and being like, okay, their skills are very important and we should keep that alive, and we want to showcase things that they are doing. Well, obviously those are also like luxury marks, so brands, so you won't like buy that for fun. But it shows also like the sort of ideals that Moomin is having through licensing agreements. One of the big things also in Japan is the Moomin cafes, and you have some Moomin cafes in Finland, but you have a lot of Moomin cafes in Asia and East Asia. This is crazy. One of the most famous cafe is in Tokyo. That was originally in the Tokyo Tower, but it has been moved because the licensing agreement kind of like run its course, and like the cafe closed, and then another cafe had an agreement, and there's a new like Moomin cafe in Shibuya. So if you want to go like in Shibuya, you will find a Moomin cafe. And the idea is that like you can come here with some friends, or if you come here alone, they will put like a Moomin plushie, a giant Moomin plushie in front of you, and you can like enjoy your coffee and sweet and whatever while having like Moomin in front of you. So this is like meant to be kind of like a respite from the like, you know, daily life. It's like when you're entering the Moomin cafe, the time is slowing down. We will take care of you. You are just here to have some fun. And the decoration is very, you know, very charming, very wood-centric, and has this very natural, old-school, retro vibe that I like a lot. This is not the only cafe that open in Japan. You have like many more in Japan, and you have many more in Asia. Recently, we have the Moomin Cafe opening in Hong Kong, because Greater China became kind of like a big thing for Moomin, a big market for Moomin, for the exact reason then Japan entered the hype. You know, Japan entered this craze about like Moomin because like the middle class basically was asking for this idea of nostalgia for a better time. And with like Chinese modernization and stuff, China has become like, is now, with a few years of delays, with a few decades of delays, is entering in that position, and now they are like the prime market for Moomin. So you have a lot of Moomin shops and cafes everywhere in Asia. And here you have a picture of the Hong Kong cafe that opened, I think, 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And you can go there to eat a lot of things. Like you have basically, I guess, like the entire menu here. So very, very interesting. One other thing in Japan is the metsa. I don't know how you pronounce it. I did not check like beforehand, so I'll just say metsa, which is the word for forest. And this is a park that was opened in Hano City in the Saitama prefecture, so like just near Tokyo. And the metsa is very interesting because like it's a complex. It is, as you can see on the right, it is composed of the Metsa village and the Moomin Valley Park that was opened a year after. And it's a very nice place. It's a very, very nice place. As you can see, there's a lot of nature. At the bottom right, you can see like the Metsa village. And it looks nice, right? It doesn't look like your average amusement park. Because the idea was really to make it nature compatible. You could spend some time in the Moomin Valley Park with your family, but then you can just like stay in the Metsa village and have some fun. Like you can fish, you can like have like a nice walk near the lake. You can enjoy like the forest, and this is a very nice place to be. And so the Metsa complex was the second amusement park that was opened in the world after the one in Finland. After the Moomin Park in Finland. And I think it is telling that like the second place is in Japan. And that it is still, you know, related to this idea of nature. We do not want to disrupt the environment. I've checked like some more photos, and you can check like some pictures, but like the attractions, the houses, they are very minimalist. They kind of blend into like the environment, into nature. And I think it has to be a very relaxing experience to have with some, with family and friends if you're like inclined to do, you know, a more nature-focused journey. I mean, trip, whatever, day. So yeah. This is kind of like the situation in Japan. Like Moomin is basically everywhere. People love Moomin to a point it is not even like funny anymore. You have like this shift, I believe, with like Moomin goodies and marketing in the last years, where Moomin is not really targeting the children anymore. We are targeting the adults that want this idea of like nostalgia, of relaxation, contemplation, some calm, some tranquility from, you know, working. And this is very much a place for adults, not just for children. So quite interesting. I want to finish and talk about, to come back to the question of like, is Moomin evil or not? Is really Moomin like capitalist or anti-capitalist? And what are we doing with Moomin nowadays in Japan? And one of the answers for that is to look at the educational world. So the screenshot that you can see here is a lecture that was held in 2010 at the Hokkaido University as part of their graduate and postgraduate courses in literature. And my cat just woke up. And this lecture is called Moomin no Kuni e Yokoso. So welcome in the land of Moomin in Moomin Valley. And it was basically an entire semester course on Moomin and the educational system and the social system of Finland. They were asked, like students were asked to read the entirety of like Moomin books. And then they would discuss about like the ideas present in the book and how it relates to like what Finland is nowadays. This lecture, by the way, if you know Japanese, this lecture is completely available. It's freely available on the open course program of the Hokkaido University. So you can like actually check the entire 12 episodes of this lecture. It is quite interesting, I will say. And yeah, it's really blending, you know, literature, Moomin, social science, and like the belief that we can create a better world. Because Japan really loves the idea of Finland as a socially progressive nation where people are working together, where you can be the person that you want, and there's no harsh social norms as in Japan right now. And a good example to see that is a book that was written by a young girl that went to Finland for her studies abroad. So this book is called I Saw a Blue Ray of Light, a record of studying abroad as a 16-year-old. And basically, like, it's the story of Erika, so it's an autobiography, and it's the story of Erika that is explaining that she was bullied in Japan. She was bullied by her like classmates, and she would be like scolded every day by her teachers. And she really struggled in school because of that. And when she was 10, she discovered Moomin for the first time, and she started reading Moomin a lot. And especially, she was relating to TOEFL. And the TOEFL of the second book of Moomin, so Who Will Comfort TOEFL, who is like a very shy character, very unsure of his place. And so Erika was like, I was like this. I didn't know where to stand, but I knew I wanted something better. And this something better might only be found in Finland. And so she would go to Finland, do her studies there, and being like, yeah, this was like the time where I was able to really open myself and to be myself, to really exist as an individual. And now I'm happy in life and I'm doing, different things, like she found success and so on. And it's a very interesting tale. And there's no big lesson from it. You can like view the book as sort of like the girl was a bit delusional, but at least it's good for her to have found like some solace. Maybe she's putting a bit too much like credit into Moomin, and other people will tell you that no, it's actually very good, and that's like a proof of Moomin's power to like enable a better world, to think about the future. And there's no definitive answer. The book is very, very descriptive, and Erika is just explaining how things happen to her, and yeah, just how she encountered like a system, a school system, an educational system that felt better. And the most interesting thing about that is that actually this book is part of like the recommended readings in Japan. Like schools will put that in their libraries, and you're encouraged to check like this book for yourself as like a teenager, which is very interesting because it's literally saying that I experienced like bullying from classmates and teachers, and I had to move to another country to like find a better system. But for some reason, it has such an aura because of Moomin, because of Finland, and it is part of the curriculum. And in general, Moomin is also part of the books that are sometimes recommended and like required readings in Japan for like children, because it seems to fit the Japanese aesthetic so much. So yeah, if you grow in Japan, maybe you will have to read like Moomin for school. Isn't that a bit crazy? And that's basically like the answer to the question of like, is Moomin evil or not? We just don't know. It's really about what you do with that. It's really about, there are some very, very, very good ideas in Moomin, and you don't have to like agree with the goodies and stuff to find like some positive messages in those lessons. You don't have to buy goodies, by the way. If you want to buy goodies and it's comforting you, it's helping you in your life, and maybe it's doing its job. So yeah, Moomin exists in a capitalistic continuum, but within it, the company is trying like to make something that feels like consumer friendly. And if we go back to the beginning, that's kind of like the strategy for the past years with like rights and brands, because they are not doing only Moomin, like they're also managing like other brands. And they really have this idea of being here like for the consumer, making things like accessible, not playing into like FOMO too much. Really like providing quality and really providing collaborations that are making sense with like the characters that you like. And I think that is explaining why Japan especially is so receptive to Moomin, because for them it fits this idea like of a better world, of a better society where people could be happy, where people could enjoy themselves. Surely there's a difference between the Moomin, the company, and the Moomin, the universe. Yes, but at the same time, like Moomin, the company, is an integral part of like Moomin, the universe. And to explain that, I think we'll come to the bibliography. You have this very interesting book called Moomin Management, Redefining Generosity, that was published last year. So it was a very interesting read, where it's a study on the management, on like marketing, and how like the company is like handling itself internally. And to be fair, it seems to be a quite nice company to work into. Like you have 25 people, and every like meeting is on an open basis. So you can go to every meeting, but you don't have to come. You can come with your mic muted, you can come without a camera or whatever. And there is just a reunion, a meeting here to like pitch some ideas and that everybody knows what to do. And when they're doing like events and parties and stuff, because they have like a party every month, they're always like trying to finish like on a very positive notes for everyone. And the book is opening like on an anecdote where the niece of like Tove Jansson was like retiring from her role as a creative director. And like everybody was really, really sad about her leaving, because the company managed to like foster such like a generous and positive management system. And when you check like the entire book, like this is a very, very in-depth book. It's also a very positive outlook, although they try to be like somewhat like, objective. You can see that it is like Moomin as a character has really like infused on the way people are managing Moomin, because it's still like owned by the family. This is still a family-run company, and they do not want to squander Tove Jansson legacy. And that's why like all of the goodies right now are only goodies based on the original art of Tove Jansson. They are not using the anime, for example. There was like at the moment the anime like was aired, the second one, there was like a new Moomin like craze worldwide, and it was really like launching the IP again. And the Moomin management company was like, what are we doing? Because we can go and like lean onto the anime, but at the same time that would be compromising the vision of like Tove Jansson and maybe her ethics to some extent. And so you have like this very, very close relationship between Moomin as a company, the Moomin universe, and everything else. And again, like Tove Jansson was also herself like dabbling into this. She was like the first one to accept collaborations and to sell goodies of Moomin very early, like in the 50s. And so I believe that we are in a situation where the art and like the business are really linked together, but we can still view this like as something positive. You know, in the great scheme of like capitalism that we're living in right now, this is probably one of the most, you know, nice expression of capitalism to some extent, because it is, I believe, bringing genuine ethics to people. People are really thinking about, you know, environment and about like solidarity and ideals. And of course, you're still buying things, but to some extent, making people think about like those questions and not like bypassing them, it is a sort of like success for Moomin. So a very important like Moomin book on like the business side of Moomin, and how positive it can be. Although like the authors are always, you know, explaining that a lot of things can also be interpreted as not necessarily negative, but like as, you know, a slippery slope if things are changing in a wrong direction. But for now, it seems to work, and it seems that everybody is really happy with Moomin, and that it's a very healthy licensing ecosystem. Okay, another very, very interesting book that I've read, not entirely because it's like 500 pages long, but this is the biography by Bull Westein, Tove Jansson, Life, Art and Words, that was released in Finnish first and then translated in several languages. So the cover that you see here is the latest edition from last year. And so this is her authorized biography, and by authorized, it's like it has been, you know, done in collaboration with people around like Tove Jansson. It's basically going through her entire life, and it's very interesting because it's not just talking about Moomin, it's talking about like all her other works that are less known, be it like her novels, her murals, her paintings, her exhibitions and stuff. And it gives like a better insight of what type of person she was. You have a lot of anecdotes about how and like with what mindset she was traveling around the world, and what she wanted to do with her life, with her art, and what it meant for her to love people, to be around people. So very good biography as well. The main source for this particular lecture today is what we saw a bit earlier. The chapter by Hideko Mitsui, Uses of Finland in Japan's Social Imaginary, in the Reflection on Imagination. It's a book that was released in the for the Ashgate Publishing House, at the Ashgate Publishing House 10 years ago. And I think it's still a very, very interesting like article, very in-depth, and yeah, a lot of like ideas all taken from it. So if you want to go like a little bit like further than my lecture, you can check this article by yourself. And there was like an article by Cobus von Statten, Mutations in Moving Valley, Globalization, Capitalism, and the Cultural Identity of Fiction in Imaginary Japan, Japanese Fantasy in Contemporary Popular Culture. This article was like released 15 years ago. Cobus van Statten here has a little bit of a negative opinion on Moomin and capitalism. I do believe that they really think that Moomin is, you know, like that the current like goody situation is very like ultra capitalistic and kind of like hypocrite, considering like the message of the work itself. I think that they are going too far. Honestly, I'm not exactly like persuaded by their opinion. Because like the first part of the article is basically like on the image of Europe in like South Africa, because they are like studying the Afrikaans dub of Moomin, and it's very interesting. And there's that like just one paragraph on Moomin and capitalism, and then I think like it's a little bit too short to really like hold a proper analysis. So yeah, they have like a negative opinion, but I think like it's a bit too negative for me, I guess. But that's basically it. You have a lot of Moomin studies, especially when it relates to like Finland. You don't have too much like studies on Moomin in other countries, and especially nothing like almost on business. The Moomin management book was kind of like the first one that was tackling business decisions for Moomin, which is kind of like natural, I guess, because like the Moomin boom economically has been like very recent. But yeah, that's basically it. I have said my piece about Moomin. I hope that it was, slightly interesting, that you have seen like very interesting things. Like, you don't need me. Like, obviously, we have not talked about like the books in themselves, about the anime and stuff, about all like the things that they are like their own, and drama pieces. You have like operas. You have so many different radio shows and whatever. But I don't think you need me to talk about that right here, because like, I believe that Moomin is pretty straightforward in its message. You need to be, I believe, a bit crazy to like read the Moomin books and not understand like the message behind. It's such like a cozy, good vibe, pre-capitalist show that, of course, it's nice. Of course, Moomin is nice. We kind of had this discussion a bit before. If you discovered Moomin like as a kid, I do understand why you're still, a Moomin fan today, and why Moomin means so much to you. Because it is generally, like I say that as an adult, that kind of like, I knew Moomin obviously, but I was never like really deep into it, and I really never watched the anime back then. Or the book for that matter, because it was not like the key books that we could find in libraries as kids. But even as an adult, I see like the appeal of it. And I think if you like discover that like as a child, yeah, it's a foundational series and universe that will like inspire you for a very long time, because the ideas within the books are just very good. There's nothing like bad in them, like for children. And it's making you like, not necessarily a better person, but I would say a person that is aware of like the possibilities of solidarity, of like spending time with nature, of slowing down, and like maybe when you'll become adult, you'll remember those lessons, and this will actually make you like a better person, and maybe it will give you like pointers on how to handle your life as an adult in like an hyper capitalistic system. But yeah, we are not talking about Moomin per se, because it's just very good. It is just very good. I have like nothing bad to say, and that's kind of like, if people were waiting for me to be a hater on Moomin today, it's just not the case, because it's just that good. Like I did watch like only a few things. Unfortunately, the timing was a bit short for me to watch like, dozens of episodes, to watch like all the adaptations, and to read like several books. But just having like a cursory view of things, reading like the beginning of the first book, it is just very nice. And I will say they did some crazy good work with the publishing, the book editions, and it really like the covers are so pretty that I almost want to buy like the books. And I'm thinking about like buying the books in Japanese so I can like practice my Japanese a little bit. So we are at that point of like, yeah, the Moomin aesthetics, it's a bit too powerful. It just works because it's very, very cozy. So that's basically it. We have yapped for 1 hour and a half, I believe a bit more than that. I hope that it was fun. But I'm in Finnish. Unfortunately, it is not on my list of languages to learn. But I don't know, like I'm learning Japanese. I think it's typically the sort of books that are very nice to read in Japanese. So yeah, like I'm a weeb at the end of the day. But yeah, I hope that it was, interesting to some extent. We have also laid out a few more ideas that we'll see again for the next season of A Leaf of their books. This idea of like, Japanese society and the categorization of like decades. We'll talk about that. So my propaganda about the lost decades is not over. Not propaganda, but at least obsession. And yeah, I just hope that it was fun to listen to. I at the very least had a lot of fun like preparing this particular lecture. Although like it was a long prep, it was longer than I expected. I think I spent like 15 hours preparing this lecture, which is a bit crazy. But I wanted to do something like very nice to end like this first season. It was good. I'm glad it was good. But yeah, let's take this opportunity, since it's a short stream, to kind of like talk a little bit more, yap a little bit more. I'll go back to the chatting scene. Because we probably will have a long stream on Friday if we want to finish the investigation in Trials of Innocence. So I want to do all of the yapping here. What I want to say is that, yeah, I mean, I don't have much more to say. We kind of like approached the topic several times before. So August, probably like 2 days of streaming per week only. And just playing games, maybe some piano. I really want to play some piano on stream. I think it was fun. And I need to test also a new setup, see if it's like convenient. I'm thinking maybe at some point of doing like some readings, just, reading books together, fiction, short stories. I think it can be like funny. I know that at the very least, some people here are audiobooks peeled. So reading books can be interesting. Like I have a few ideas. So why not? In September, there will be some prep, and I still don't know if we're doing like a full review or if we are doing like a kind of like informal review, and we don't really care too much about like, putting proper forms into doing it. But yeah, it's like what I really want to say is that the schedule for the next 2 months will be a bit shaky. Obviously, you'll have all the informations on social media and like on the Discord. If like, you need to be notified of any weird changes of schedule and stuff. But do expect to see me less often on stream at the very least than lately, because I need some rest. I need also to be able to work on projects. I don't know why. I told that to like several people like off stream, but like I don't think I'm nearing burnout, but I can feel that like my body is kind of in shambles, and then I need like a lot of time to rest. I'm so busy like outside of stream, you can't even believe it's true. I have so many projects and I can't finish them. It's like you add something to your plate, and at the beginning it's not a lot, but when you like add again and again and again, and nothing is being like discarded in the meantime or finished in the meantime, then you have like just a bit too much. And I'm in this situation where like it's just a lot, and I can feel that I can pull like a little bit more on my resources to like continue working, but if I continue to do that like for 1 month, I would be like burning out. So I need like to reestablish some rules for myself, like kind of like the balance that I want between streaming and the rest. So yeah, we'll talk about that when I'll have like some more visibility and options in what I want to do. And well, that's basically everything I wanted to say. So we will have a last stream on Friday. Miyabi order peeled Mitsuhara. Yes, I do not get the idea of chaos. I know that my chest is very chaos peeled. I don't see the vision. I need order. The stream has been so cozy. I finished a bunch of chores. I am very happy to hear that again. You know that it is what I strive for. Like I want my stream to be cozy and educational. You know, like if you can learn a few things, then I'm also happy. But yeah, last stream on Friday. I'll see you there, or maybe not. If I don't see you there on Friday, I hope that you will have a wonderful summer, at least a wonderful end of July, because we won't see each other until like February. Until February, that's a long break. Until August. And yeah, and if you will be here on Friday, then I'll be very happy to see you there. February, I just was reading like an article popped in my timeline, and it was like, there was like February written, and I was like, oh, you know, I'm talking about a month, and just read what you have in front of you. No, of course, it's not. It is not. I don't know. Should I click on this? I guess it's just an emote, but like, no, like I'm not taking a break until like February. I want to do also more breaks in general, like 1 week or a few days, like taken just for myself, because people are forcing me to take care of myself, by the way. And I think I should like heed their advice to some extent and just take some break for myself. Which is also like when Miyabi is taking a break, it's like she's not streaming, but like she's just like working, right? She's just doing her like research, but without the additional like stream on top of that. But yeah, that's basically everything. So thank you very much for today. I know it's like a shorter stream, but I think like short is also very good. Very, very happy to have done this lecture. I will see you at a later point. Have a wonderful end of afternoon, evening, and I'll see some of you, one of you, later for raid. So bye bye, thank you for coming, bye bye.